Welcome back, everyone, to episode 9 of Show and Tell. This is my small adventure to highlight the creators and contributors to the Magic Gathering community. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Joseph Johnson, actor, entertainer, YouTuber, cosplayer, martial artist. I don't know what this man doesn't do. It makes me feel a little embarrassed about my life, but hey, you know, if you got the skills, like, well, why not? So, Joe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate you for coming on probably a lot more. We are sweating out over here on the West Coast, so if you hear an air conditioning going off, you know what? That's just the price of entry at this point because it is hot in this side of the world. Um, I always joke, the best place to start is kind of at the beginning. And for me, I think my first introduction to you was on game nights. I think you had one of in my opinion, one of the more entertaining game nights episode. You were definitely kind of very personable, funny. I'm sure that experience was great. But talk to me about like your Magic background. Like, how long have you been playing Magic? What kind of got you into it? That sort of thing.
Well, it's funny because when I was on game night, so I've been playing Magic for a few years before that, and I was like kind of on my way out. I was like, I'm not really interested anymore. It's kind of whatever. I was kind of just
Yeah.
like, eh, like we do, like we get,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that kind of reinvigorated everything that I had been wanting from the magic community. And I figured like, you know what? It's really about the pod. It really is
Yep.
about the pod of people that you play in, the community that you surround yourself in, the friends that you surround yourself with. That is key to keeping the spark alive,
Yep.
which is keeping your planeswalker spark. That is really what it really boils down to, for at least for me. I
Yeah.
don't know for anyone else, but that kind of reinvigorated my spark and made me want to get more involved, to
Mhm.
start to figure out, okay, if there's a community, where is it? Where, like, who's a part of it? Let's collaborate. Let's get down. I'm in this thing.
Yeah. Had you been playing Commander before kind of coming back with game nights, or just like Magic in general? Like, were you kind of a kitchen top player? Like, what were you, like, I guess,
I
Magic
played.
always has a way of bringing people back in. You think you're out, but then they pull you back in.
Mhm.
But yeah, were you doing Commander beforehand, before the
I was
show?
doing. I was doing Commander beforehand. I was playing a little 1v1 Commander. I was playing Legacy. I had a couple modern decks. Like, I was kind of all over the place. So
Hmm.
I didn't really have a home, so to speak. I
Yeah.
definitely have way more Commander decks now than I did,
Yeah.
back before I got on game nights. But now yeah, I mean, it's just super fun. It's more. I feel like Commander is more customizable to your preferences. So
Yeah.
I mean, every Magic deck can be, but like you kind of have to play towards the meta. In Commander, I feel like there is no meta. It just depends on who you're playing with.
Yeah.
So you can kind of mix and match and like, hey, I got this really janky deck that's worth like $50, and then I have this like, couple $1,000 deck that like wrecks face. So and then
Yeah.
anywhere in between, I have a precon, I have, my spin on the precon, or just all these different variants
Yep.
um, that I feel like people tend to lean more towards. And it also invites it just, for me, that invites so many more people into the game. And when I trying to get my fiance to play, or trying to get people that I've run into on the streets to be like, hey, I saw you playing with so and so. That's really dope. I didn't even know that was cool. I feel like you wouldn't do anything that's not dope. So it made me want to play, and that right there warms my heart, because I'm like, yes, let's go. Because like
Yeah.
I went to I'm gonna get off on a tangent, but I went
Oh,
to
please.
Oakland, and it honestly, it was so dope to be in that city, that vibe. I love Oakland. I love Oakland. I love the Bay. And I walked to this restaurant, and all black people, all black staff. It was crazy. And a guy came up to me, he was like, Black Nito. And I was like, yo, what's good? And it was like he was just like shaking. I was like, bro, like we're good. Like let's go. Like we fam out here, you know what I mean? So he was a chef in the back. He hooked it up. We came out, we did some pictures, grabbed some shots. It was nothing but love. So that for me does it. That kind of, like I said, it warms my heart to see people of color, to see more people like me. And when I went to MCG Vegas, same thing happened. I was getting approached by people of color like, hey, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for representing. Thank you for putting us out there, because it's nice to see myself in this game because I'm out here too. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We're definitely gonna get into that for sure. But God, there's so much to talk about. It's funny, like I I've played Magic on and off like most people since like junior high. So I started playing during the Urza block. So like for me, and as I've gone through like high school and college and everything, like I've really lost people to play with. And I kind of got pulled back in with a friend who was like, "Oh, the next set's Dominaria, and it's supposed, Richard Garford came back and all this other stuff." So that kind of brought me back in, and then I discovered Commander, and it's like, "Oh, like there's this format where I can use all these old cards, and like, I have like boxes of cards, and to be able to kind of go and maybe not good decks, but decks where I can put them in." I was like, "Oh yeah, this is cool. I'm in. Like heck yes." Um, and I think what's kind of kept me in it even now, like I always joke, like for how many I probably have more commander decks than games of actual commander I've been able to play. Um, it's just being able to create. I was like, oh, I had this really cool idea. I'm going to build a gates deck. I'm going to build a shrines deck. I saw this like one new uncommon commander from Dominator, the Rona. I'm like, oh, I'm going to build a deck where all I do is cast 1 mana cantrips and try to kill everyone by like 1 damage at a time. Just like stuff like that where you talk about like you can make kind of unique decks and standard kind of like there's traditional shells, right? Like, there's probably always blue white control and there's always kind of red, but if you want to make a janky snow zombie deck, like there might snow is a rare thing, right? So I think the ability to be so creative with your commander decks and finding a good play group. I think the multiplayer aspect, because I always joke I probably minored in Magic in college because my friends and I played so much just Magic, and we literally it was like multiplayer Magic, but it's like we had our 60 card decks and there were like I don't know 5 to 6 of us depending, and we would just like go around and like, okay, I'm going to attack you. It was like a proto commander multiplayer format, but like it was fun. We found ways to play, and I always wish that Commander kind of existed back then, to have that kind of little more structure. But it was just you're playing with your friends, right? That's the real enjoyment. I think a lot of times is I always harp on the gathering, right? The gathering is an important aspect of Magic, and it's kind of cliche to say that, but it really makes sense. Like that's kind of like I think what keeps people back in, and I think you especially have kind of become a very focal point in like the importance of community and building communities, both new and old. So we're definitely going to get into that as well. But gosh, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I'm going to hop around a little bit because you're so cool, dude. I love it. So in addition to obviously playing a lot of Magic, you're an actor. You've done stuff from the Orville. You're in. If I was better at my notes, you've been in a few different shows, and you've done some stage plays. I know you were. You talk about being Iago in a stage play as well, which is pretty cool. So what? Talk to me about acting. Like that's as someone who's a naturally shy person, like what was it like to getting into acting? Was it always something you kind of wanted to do, or did you just kind of stumble into it?
Well, it's so funny because like I really didn't kind of I didn't plan on doing acting at all. I was kind of just like always the class clown. I was always cracking jokes, and
Mm.
I always knew I was drawn to art. I was like I was trying to do graphic arts. When I first set my mind to a career path, and I took an improv class in high school, and I was thinking like, oh, okay, it's just a general ed, get an easy A, and the teacher, Mr. Jennings, I'll never forget him. He's still around, acting like he's dead. Martin Jennings, he pulled me up. He was like, look, I'm gonna need you to audition for the plays this year. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And he was like, here, learn these monologues. I was like, okay, a couple speeches or whatever. And he cast me in a couple plays. And then from there, there was a couple people from Western Michigan where I went to undergrad at that came to one of the plays that wanted to talk to me after. They were like, hey, you need to come out and audition for our school. And I was just like, what is going on? So I went home, told my mom everything, what happened, and she was like, here, let me show you something. And she put this VHS in, and I was like, okay, I don't even know why we still have one of those, but like like where did that come from? So she popped it in, and it was her, and it was a show that she was hosting, and my
Mhm.
mom had her own talk show. Um, and I had never known. She had never like told me about it, and she was like, "Look, I tried to keep this away from you because I didn't know. I didn't want to push you into something that like all those other parents like, oh, trying to live vicariously through their kids, but you fell into it. So this is
Yeah.
why." So yeah, so I fell into it, fell in love with acting, and the reason I guess being it was an outlet for me to and I'm getting deep or whatever, but like to be emotionally
Mhm.
available because
Yeah.
growing up in where I grew up in, it was very much like you got two options: either you gonna play, basketball or football or whatever, or you gonna sell drugs, and that was kind of it. And
Yeah.
so this allowed me an opportunity to figure out my way out of the hood in order to get something else going on, and also
Yeah.
to let other people know, hey, there's more options. You don't have to just
Yeah.
do that, and giving back to the community and whatnot. So that was a big thing for me, and it's still a big thing for me, and that's why I continue to do what I do, and I just enjoy just being around creatives and other like-minded people and bringing a character to life or bringing something to life. I love making people laugh, but also, I can get to the drama and stuff too. So, I love it all. I
Yeah.
don't have a preference.
There's something about performing. I was in a silly little rock band in college, but my friends and I always said like no matter how we thought we enjoyed playing, we thought we were good, we probably weren't good, but like when you're on stage performing, like when you're in the middle of it, there's like a feeling of like no matter how, my friend put it best, he's like no matter how bad you are in that moment, everyone's looking at you wishing they were in your spot because you have that spotlight. So I definitely can understand, like especially as someone like I kind of what you're talking about. I not that I regret it, but like I played a lot of sports growing up. I played soccer, I played basketball, I played baseball, which was fine, but I never was super into it. I didn't discover like music, or I'm a photographer and I guess videographer or whatever. I didn't really get to that to like end of high school, college, and having like an artistic outlet was like a revelation for me. And discovering music and being able to sit down with my the guy in my band and like write songs and write lyrics and like music and then do portrait stuff, like having those artistic outlets. I think a lot of men sometimes, and I think especially with black men, there's a lack of support in those
Hmm.
systems, which it's terrible. I mean, you hear about every day schools lose funding, and what's the first thing that gets cut from school? It's always the arts programs, and
Always.
so it's nice to see someone who comes on and it's like, man, I had this opportunity fall in my lap, and you grabbed it and you ran with it and you loved it. And it's like, I watch you, I watch you acting. I went through and I watched your reel, and obviously I've seen you on like game nights and your show, Tabletop Jocks, and you definitely I I always like when you can see an actor and it's like your acting and your personality, it seems to intertwine. Like it's like, oh yeah, it's you, but you're acting. It's so effortless, like the kind of, and I think that's a lot of time a key for actors. And I mean, I don't know this is what I when I look at actors, I obviously don't know anything about acting, but like seeing how like effortlessly you kind of like deliver your lines and how like your personality shines through even when you're playing someone else. I think that's actually a very difficult talent because like you want to be able to um, not be kind of stilted or kind of like wooden. Like it's very smooth and very like I just was like, oh man, like you can see like Joe, but it's like no, he's like Joe, but not Joe. Like he's out there and he's like he's killing it. Really, is what I was like, man, this is great. And I laughed because you just had was that a Cricket wireless commercial. Is that kind of like the cell phone? I was watching
Yeah.
something with my I was watching TV with my wife. I'm like, oh yeah, see that guy? I'm gonna talk to that guy in a few weeks. And she's like, oh really? Like wow, he's funny. I was like, yeah, I know. So that's pretty cool. I also saw this is just a personal thing. You got your master's at UC Irvine,
I did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
fellow anteater. I did my undergrad there, so
Hey,
zot
Zot
zot.
Zot. Let's go. Let's go.
Um, I love that school, and everyone kind of makes fun of it, but like I enjoyed all my undergrad there. So probably a little different for a master's program, but hey, it's still got
We
Rockdale
were
anyway.
stuck
So
in that little block of buildings in the arts. So it was like I talked to the musical theater people, and
yeah,
that was kind of it.
I hear you. I hear you. Um, Do you have a preference between acting in like a play or acting like in like a TV show or anything? Is there, or is it like one you prefer, or is it just two different experiences? Like, what's that like? Do you have one you like more?
I think it's just two different experiences. I think, being on stage, there's something about it that's exhilarating, and no one's ever going to be able to see your performance ever again. And that's why I got more into film and TV because I want to share that with the world.
Yeah,
If I really love a role or I really love, I'm passionate about a certain thing, it could be captured forever. And I think that's
yeah,
what made me, fall in love with TV and film. But there is a certain element of performing on stage, as with the rock band, you feel that energy from the crowd, or if you don't, you need to like put your energy out in the crowd and get them, hype.
yeah.
So that's that's the closest thing I've ever felt to being a rock star. Being on stage. I
Yeah.
performed, as you saw earlier. We were at the Kennedy Center, um, performing Othello, and then I went for another thing. So I performed there a couple of times, and both times it's been like, whoa, there's a lot of people in the crowd, but like it just fed me more energy. It's like, oh, this is what like rock stars feel like, or rappers feel like, or like that whole energy that you just get from everyone, and you just know your performance. And like so many times I've like browned out and been like, did I just forget my lines? Was the scene over? What happened? And then you hear everyone standing up and clapping. And you're like, all right, I guess I didn't.
Yeah.
It's just no other experience like that. Just having that energy from the crowd. So I don't think I have a preference, one or the other. I think I enjoy them both. When I, get to a place where I can go back and do theater, because you don't really make a lot of stage money. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
And you
Oh,
got
I know.
I gotta get the bag. So I think that once I get to a place where I'm more comfortable, I will start to go and start doing more stage plays and start doing more theater because I still love that experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense. It's definitely, I can imagine it being two separate kind of worlds and two separate experiences, which both have their positives, obviously. So, well, that's great. Well, I do hope with your continued success, you do get a chance to squeak out some plays because that's definitely if you like doing it, man, I gotta keep up with that for sure.
Definitely.
Um, so I guess kind of tangentially related to acting a little bit, kind of getting into more nerdy things. Uh, so in addition to magic, you're also a pretty big cosplayer. I've noticed. Some of your cosplays I've seen. I mean, everyone I've seen has been pretty darn legit. As someone whose cosplay career is mostly, I was the 11th Doctor once because I had a tweed jacket. It was very hot.
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
I've seen your Nightwing, which I love Nightwing, big Batman guy. So like Nightwing is probably big fan of Dick Grayson. I'm actually a
Hmm.
big Tim Drake guy, which
Yeah.
I don't know. He was Robin, then like he wasn't Robin, but I think he's now Robin. I don't know. There's like six. Back in my day, there were three Robins. Now there's like six of them. So who knows? Um, I've seen you definitely. I think you've had a Black Panther cosplay, which
Yep.
looks pretty sweet. I think somewhat recently, you were at Star. What was the Star Wars thing that just happened? You were Finn at
Oh yeah, Star Wars Con or Star
Star
Wars
Wars Con.
Celebration. Celebration. Yeah,
Celebration,
yeah,
yeah. Which I literally am walking distance to the convention center, and I was like, oh, I should go. Like, I love Star Wars, and I was like, oh, I should go and like go to this. Like, I didn't realize when it was, and of course, when I go buy tickets, everything was sold out. So I'm like,
yeah. Mm.
good job. Like, big Star Wars fan I am. But yeah, literally like 5 minute walk. I'm there. So next time,
Yeah.
next time.
Next time.
Um, I loved your Finn. Like, I think Finn is one of the. We're gonna talk about Star Wars for a second because this is
That's
so
fine.
follow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Finn it got such a raw deal in the new trilogy. Like, should have been a Jedi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should have so much stuff. Like, I'm open. I hear rumors that they've been trying to pitch Boyega on a Finn like Disney Plus show where basically he gets to be like trained and become a Jedi and all this kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like praying that it's true. I know he's kind of had a falling out with Disney, but like I think if Disney comes back with that Disney money, which good for him if he gets Disney money and
Hey,
gets to
get
be
that Disney
Jedi,
money.
like so. But I was, I bring it up because I remember you had a pretty cool story about walking around a celebration and your friend costume. I think you met some fans who were like just stoked to see you, and like, what was that interaction like?
That was like one of the first. So this is my first year of going to conventions or at all, like period.
Yeah,
And that experience for me was similar to like coming off stage and then going backstage and then coming out and people being like, hey, good performance, da da da, this and this, and it was just a different experience, but it was very similar to that as far as
Hmm.
how I felt. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I just want to be friends with everybody, and I'm only child, so my like kick in like, hey, we can all hang out and be friends, and
Yeah.
because whatever, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
So that's what that experience was for me, and it prompted me to my buddy Devin, who got me into Comic Con
Hmm.
with his group. I actually invited him out to one of the tabletop jock shoots for the cookout. So I knew he
Yeah.
was gonna be there, and I was like, "Yo, dude, you should come be on the show." And he was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" I was like, "No, I'm not. Like, we're doing all black, content creators. Like, come through." So yeah, so it was really cool to sort of have that interaction and just kind of vibe out.
Yeah. Have you been cosplaying a while? Is this something kind of relatively new, or how long? I mean, what's cosplaying been like for you in your life?
For me, like it's just an interesting journey from my like nerd flag to fly even. I started as more of a Halloween thing, but I like
Hmm.
really got into it. And I was like, no, 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 no. If I'm gonna be like dressing up for Halloween, I can't half step. I gotta like go all the way. And I
Yeah.
think my first cosplay was Sam Wilson, like when
Okay.
he first dropped, the comic dropped, and it was like, oh yeah, Captain America's brother now. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so I can be
Yeah.
Cap now. And um, that took me into, and I still need to like redo it and like get the wings and the whole thing. But that was my
Easy.
first
Just get some
attempt.
wings. Easy.
Yeah,
Easy.
just
Easy upgrade.
just somebody just built it from scratch. And then the next year I did Daredevil because the Netflix series that had come out, and so I
Yeah.
was like, "Yo, I want to be Daredevil, but like legit, like the black costume with the Eskrima." And I walked around the whole night with like the blinder, the whole thing on. I was legit
Yeah.
blind. I was like, I couldn't see anything. And somebody was like, I felt someone like waving a hand in front of my face to see if I could see. And I was like, I feel your hand, but I don't see you. And they're like, Are you legit blind? I was like, Well, I'm Matt Murdock, so so
Fully
then
embrace the character.
it just got into character, and it was just like every year, just one thing after another. I had a Luke Cage, that I did with me and my now fiance, but she was my girlfriend at the time. She was Jessica
Mhm.
Jones, and we met up and we with some other defenders that day. Yeah, did the Black Panther, did it just kept stepping up.
Yeah.
Every
Hmm.
year it kept getting boom, 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 boom. So
Yeah.
I guess like recently, but like in the last like 5 years, I've really like been into cosplaying.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. It's definitely. I always have mad props for cosplayers. Just like the time that goes into like a good cosplay. Even like I mean, just in general, like the just putting everything together. I had a Giraffinet on a few weeks ago, and just talking to her and looking at some of her cosplays, like the just the detail and the work that goes into. I'm just like, man, if I can't just buy the parts for it, like I don't even know if I could do it. And like I said, I've seen like I've seen like your Nightwing cosplay, your Black Panther cosplay, and they all look like screen. I mean, screen accurate, right? That's the goal, I'm
That's
sure,
the
as for most
goal. Yeah.
cosplayer. And yeah, and it's these are cool characters, and like it's fun to kind of like be able to immerse yourself. Especially as an actor, it's probably a fun exercise. And like, well, let's kind of combine um, this acting idea, but then something a little more. I don't want to say less fun than like a play, but like it can be.
hmm
I mean, you get to be being Black Panther is probably a little more fun than being just some guy in a whatever, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's a fun exercise in acting too because I did the Wakandan accent the whole night. So anybody, even if I
Okay.
took my helmet off, that's how I was talking the whole night. Same thing with Dick Grayson. I was like embracing the fact that this was Gotham,
Yeah.
and all my answers were very like, somebody brought up Batman. I was very jaded in some instances, and he just has that kind of brooding. I need to prove myself kind of, I'm not Robin anymore. I'm Nightwing now, kind of deal. So that it was nice to have that vibe to it.
Yeah. That's sweet. Yeah, that's cool. I think if you're gonna do it, like you should go full into it, right? Because it's like why not? Might as well fully commit
Exactly.
to the role and like really embrace the character. And usually those are the most fun interactions. Like you see videos of people like Comic Con, and like it's always the more interesting ones when the people like are fully in their character because it's like, oh, this is
Hmm.
cool. Like you kind of get to see these people experience these relationships and these roles. So, yeah, your stuff has always been awesome. So it's great to see that. And I just I look forward to seeing the Sam Wilson get the wings on there and just full cap. That'll be I'm sure quite impressive. Um, well, so I would be remiss if I didn't bring up probably one of your biggest projects right now is Tabletop Jocks is your YouTube channel, um, doing all sorts of you do magic content. I believe you do Dungeons and Dragons content. Uh, so talk to me about Tabletop Jocks. What was your first vision when you kind of started the channel? Is this always kind of like a goal of yours? Was it kind of a spur of the moment sort of thing? Like I know you had bopped around on some other YouTube stuff, but I know this has been like your big flagship sort of thing. So what really was your initial vision for the show?
My initial vision, and I talked to my, producer, our other producer, Jay Ballantyne, and I told him from the get-go, I was like, I want to create a space, a safe space for uh, marginalized, communities, so people who don't get to represent themselves that much in this space. Being nerdy, I wanted to make it more accessible to everyone else. I want to create a space where you can literally look at this and go, okay, cool. Like literally, I guess a recent moment when I was in San Diego for Comic Con, we all got together. I got with Robert Magic Group and Hire, and we all literally played Magic outside of from what it was like a hookah lounge, but then it turned to a club, and people were in there
Okay.
dancing and having a good time. And they would come out and they would see us on the patio playing Magic, and we
Yeah.
was like, but it was seamless though, and we didn't act like it was anything else. It was like, hey, like one guy was like, I felt he was like he knew what it was, but he was like trying to like downplay it because he was probably interested and probably felt like there was a disconnect. He's like, "Oh, y'all playing that Yu-Gi-Oh bullshit," and I was like, "No, no, no, we playing Magic, homie. You come over here." Like
Yeah.
but we fully embraced it and invited him to the group, and was like, and anybody who came over, we were like, "Yeah, yeah, look at what we're doing," like da da da, and it was just like you said, it was the gathering. It was, and it melded those two, and then it became like, "Hey, let's go take a shot together. Let's go," and it was like we started turning up with them. Um, because we were like, this is no different from just going to hang out with your friends playing spades or playing poker or playing whatever. This is just a social thing that we're all
Hmm.
here to do. We're all hanging out. We just like y'all. You know what I mean? When there's no difference between being a nerd and being a regular person. It's all combined. Everybody's a nerd in some way. This is just
Yeah.
how we express our nerdom.
Yep.
So I think that's been my goal since day one, is to play Magic with my homies, get all my friends on the channel and just have fun, and and vibe out with, and let people know that this is more than just the I mean, I'm gonna be real. It's more than just the straight white males and the neck beards and the incels. It's not like when you say nerd, there's used to be such a negative connotation towards that,
Hmm.
and now it's not that anymore. And I feel like there are some people who still want to hold on to that and act like this isn't for everybody, and that's not true. And I
Yep.
love that the fact that Wizards is getting on board with that, and I've worked with them multiple times. And I love the fact that the people that are around me love the fact that that is what it is. And so that's been my goal since day one, and I feel like we're achieving that goal.
Yeah, I would definitely say you are on the right track for sure. You are definitely making waves. Um, I think what I've liked most about your show is um, what I try to do here is like I'm interested in community. I'm interested in building out communities. And yeah, to your point, like for most of my life, nerd has been a dirty word, right? It's been
Mhm.
straight white guys, neckbeards, whatever. But gatekeeping, like people, maybe people who are not interested, who don't look like me, who want to get into the game and feel they can't for whatever reason. They're intimidated, they're
Mhm.
turned away, and that's bullshit to be frank.
For real.
Um, and what I've especially loved about watching your career and now especially with Tabletop Jocks is just the way you are really building out a community of uh, just everyone who wants to come in, right? And the show, I mean, the show is awesome because you talk about vibe, and the vibe of your show is so kind of different from a lot of stuff out there. You know, we talk about you being on game nights. Game nights is awesome. Game nights is looks gorgeous. It's super well produced, and that's nothing wrong. That's awesome. Your
Hmm.
show, your show looks good too, but it's like a different vibe. It's really just like there's a camera and there's people just hanging out and you're just playing Magic and you're vibing, and like the game is almost secondary to the atmosphere, which is really I think what Commander especially, but Magic is kind of like, and outside of like maybe competitive formats, is really like that's what Magic is. Magic is hanging out with your friends and just shooting the shit and just like whatever. Like, oh, it's cool if someone someone has a cool deck and does this or whatever. But it's more of like, what are you joking about? Like, what's gonna happen? Or someone that's I see that in your show, and I'm like, see, he gets it. Like he gets I think what's important out of this, because so many people were like, they complain about the stupidest things. They complain about, oh, the game is too political. The game is too like what in what way does that affect your enjoyment of the game
Right.
from like from a practical standpoint? It's really not, So I think for me seeing that, I think that's especially that's why I was really especially glad to kind of get you on, because I'm like, I think I watching you do what you do, um, especially as a black man, I think is very important. I always joke. I think I joke with someone that you and even like Cassius, excuse me. Yes, yeah, I could speak. Are probably two of the more important figures in Magic in a lot of ways, because you look at Mr. Marsh, as
Hmm.
a NFL, he's an NFL player, right?
Hmm.
But you go on his like TikTok and he's like popping like Pokemon card packs, and like you know what I mean? And like I think to be able to see that and like, oh no, like everyone likes this stuff. Some
Hmm.
people there might be an ego or a mess, some sort of like weird like thing or word, but no, it's like the game is for everyone and everyone can play it. So I I've been really, like I said, I really enjoy the show. I really enjoy it when I kind of see it. And like I love your guests are always so fun and inviting, and like the vibe is if people really want to see how Magic should be played, like check out Tabletop Jocks, and like that's the vibe people should be definitely going for. Um, I do. So I mean, obviously you kind of had some gravitas coming into Table Chalks with some of your other appearances on like Game Nights or whatever. But what have you found as you've kind of built out the show and even your community? What's been some sort of difficulties? Like I'm sure people are going to look at you and go like, well, of course he's success. Like I'm sure it was easy, but like
Hmm.
as I'm a little rinky dink kind of YouTube guy on my own, and I'm like whatever. I can only imagine like the logistics. Like what have you found to be like some of the difficulties of trying to like put out this sort of put out the content you've been working on?
I think it just in general, being black in this space, and also just being good at the game. I get a lot
Yeah.
of comments like, "Oh, you're just trying to pub stomp, or you're just trying to, beat everybody. You're making the most optimized deck, and you have all this money." And I'm like, "No, I don't, and I just know how to play what the cards that I'm dealt with. It's like that's how I
Yeah.
grew up. That's just being a black man in America. You get dealt a hand, and you have to figure it out. And quite literally, I get dealt a hand and I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have mana crypts and all the crazy stuff because my play group has all that. The play
Yeah.
group that I mess with, that I've cultivated towards, they all have these powerful things, and yeah, it is what it is. So I feel like no matter what, I would be at a disadvantage because even if I kind of just showed up and just played some jank or played, whatever just to have fun, then I would get, oh, well, you don't even know how to play the game. Why are you playing? So there's
Yeah.
no like, it's just like you hear the loud, talk, and then you hear the positive stuff. So I try to stay positive.
Yeah.
I try to make sure that my mental health is okay, you know, because that's what you have to do in this community because there's so much just in fandom in general. I had to go off the other day about, the new Lord of the Rings and the new Game of
Yeah.
Thrones. It's just people are
Yeah.
just so ignorant and ready to show their ignorance. It just full forward. And it's like just people in general just need to like have some empathy, just like gain some
Yeah.
empathy and just like even if you don't like something, if something bothers you, just walk away, turn the
Yeah.
channel. You don't have to like comment on this is my thing. It's like shut the fuck up, you know what I mean? Just like the
Yeah.
whole shit is just like bro, like you don't even need to go there. It's like all these faceless cowards. It's just like it just it that's honestly that's been my trials and tribulations of dealing with the magic community. There's been a lot of dope people, but there's also been just negative Nancy's, just a lot of haters. And it's just like, and Cassius tells me all the time, like, bro, if you don't have haters, you ain't doing it right. So I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, I know I'm doing it right, but
Yeah.
we're humans too. People who are content creators are humans too. And, sometimes we look at that stuff and go, man, this is like affecting my mental health right now. And, even when someone doesn't like something, it's just the tone, the way they say stuff. It's like people just need to like there needs to be like a code and like manners, you know what I mean? Like people need to grow up differently. And I think that's just, the way I grew up. If I don't like something, if I, if I ain't got nothing to say, don't say it. If my mom, if my mama wouldn't, she'd tell me, right, look, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all unless you're ready
Yeah.
to scrap,
Yeah.
unless you're ready to throw down. And that's just where my whole mental has been coming from. It's like, if you wouldn't say that shit in the hood, don't say it. Cause you might get clapped at. Like,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And it just boggles my mind that people have like, essentially no consequence. And I feel like if there was a consequence, then people would have a little more tact in
Yeah.
their in their manners and whatnot. So, I try to teach when I can, and like I said, I grew up where I grew up. You know what I mean? I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and it was what it was. Somebody come at me on some sideways shit, I'm gonna come at them on some sideways shit. But I
Yep.
I learned that no one cares about how people came at me. Is they care about my response. And
Yeah.
so catering to that crowd, I switched it up and was like, okay, you know what? Somebody comes at me on some sideways shit, I'm gonna either ignore it or say it in a way where I'm still saying what I need to say, but I'm saying it in a way that it's not just like, motherfucker, if you coming around the hood, like you ain't gonna be talking all that loud shit, you know what I mean? Like that's where I'm from. That's how it is, like, and like I said, I'm being very like, on the level because, we're in a different environment, in a different world and shit like that. But like a lot of these cats don't know how it goes down, and it could be, I mean, I don't want to get on the hood shit like that, but like
Yeah.
you talk reckless, a lot of stuff could happen like real quick. So, dealing with like internet trolls and stuff like that, I think that's been my biggest like gripe against the community. But for the most part, everybody who I've met, like in person, like like I said, I went to, all these things in person this year,
Yeah.
and that's been like glorious. And I've been like,
Hmm.
man, this is like revitalizing for me when I meet, real, like honestly, I think these are the real fans that
Yeah.
that love this magic, that love the game, that want to hang out, and that re-energizes me when I go to these things and like get to hang out with, all these different content creators and just that kind of brings me back up to it.
Yeah. It's amazing the level of like what internet anonymity has done. Nailed that word. For people just to say whatever whatever they want, and just the ridiculous things they say, and as a someone who considers himself, I call myself as a creator, whatever. Like you're always going to remember the one crappy comment over the 50 good ones, right? It's
Hmm.
always, even if it's from, anime profile picture guy number, whatever. It's always going to stick with you because you're like man, that's I spent like 50 hours on this thing, and like you come out and you just like, it's tough because like it's hard because we're so constantly bombarded now with inputs, right, from
Hmm.
Twitter or YouTube or what have you. um, you have to be aware of your mental health, and
Hmm.
when you kind of become someone who becomes a figure in a community or a fandom, be it Magic or Star Wars or comics or whatever, like people are going to come for you, right? And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you are, you're recognizing that you can't, you have to be able to like compartmentalize, right? Because they're trolls. Like the most of the
Yeah.
internet people, the internet's full of trolls. Like that's what the internet is. So, um, yeah, I don't, people can deal with dragons and elves and gods, but you have one black elf in the world loses. It's like what? like what? That's what takes you out of not the fire breathing dragon, but it's the that's I just it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy because the world, the world is so much bigger than like what we're used to seeing, and you start opening it up, and like people like freak out, and it's like it's okay, like it'll be okay. Your stuff is still there. If it's if a show is good, it's gonna be good. It's
Yeah.
not. That's not gonna be what takes down the the Lord of the Rings empire. Like it's mind blowing, and it's frustrating as someone who's just like, I was always been, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and like I'm loving the new show. I think it's great. Like it
Yeah.
should be more diverse. Like why, like yeah, it's mind blowing, and it's not because people are lame. So like, you just gotta. That's why you gotta cultivate your groups, and
Yeah.
I always say like, what freedom of speech is like freedom of speech from protection from the government. It's not freedom of consequences, right? So like
Right.
you can say what you want, but if you say it to the wrong person, like that's on you, man. Like
That's on
that's
him. Yeah. Like, hey,
yeah.
more power to
So
you. If you want to go in the hood and say that shit, go for it. Have fun.
yeah,
You might not come out.
yeah, exactly. Uh, let's talk about this awesome thing you did was the creator barbecue. So you put on this barbecue for a bunch of content creators. So tell me about the barbecue. You've kind of talked about it a few times through the internet trail interview circuit, if you will. But you know what? Darn it, you're on my show, so I'm going to ask about it because it's super cool, and I want to hear about it again. So talk to me about this barbecue. Like what inspired you for this barbecue, and what was it? What was it like being there? Like what were the guests? Like how were they? And what do they think of it?
I mean, just the whole experience was something that I wanted to do since I stepped into the space because I've seen the lack of melanin and the lack of black creators, and I see it so I know so there's so many people, and I was like, no, 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 I'm gonna get as many of them as I can, and it was still like a few like it was still like 20 or 30 people that I reached out to. They were like, "Hey, I just can't make it, but I want to."
Yeah,
That was it was, but I feel like it's gonna get to that point where because we're gonna do it every year.
yeah,
Um, and for the first time, I was very impressed. I was like, "Oh, okay, look at all this melanin out here. Let's go. We out here, doing it." But it gave me so much joy, and it was just to see all these smiling black faces and these content creators, and like, I talked to someone else about it, and they were just like, "Yeah, like legit, they're going to like no one's going to be able to say, oh, I don't know that I just don't know any black content creators. Like here's the blueprint right here. You can go and look up
yeah,
every single one of them in this post, in this thing. They're all tagged. Here's all their info. Here's everything. And it just brought us so much joy to just like hang out. It was just really just like kicking it with family, and
yeah,
people that hadn't met a day in their lives. I've never been on a set like this before. People that had met a day in their lives and coming together and just having fun. No one got reckless. Everybody was having a good time. We smiled, nothing but smiles and laughter and fun and just like that's why I mean when I say black joy, it was just like just the utmost level of anything you could ever get close to like perfection in your heart. That's what it felt like. It
yeah,
felt like watching Black Panther for the first time or watching, like your favorite movie for the first time.
yeah,
It felt like that. It was a gathering of us, and I felt great about that. And I was like, yo, this is live. Don't nobody else. If anybody else tried to do that, I feel like it'd be a little more like, oh, you trying to make it like yeah, I don't know. It'd be weird, but like it was
yeah.
us, and we were having a good time, and we all came together, and it was lovely. So that's what I wanted.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, and the fact that you took it upon yourself to do, I think is again a great example of like kind of being a leader in a community and being a figure and kind of inspiring others, and pointing out there are a lot of black creators out there, they're who are just as good and interesting as everyone else, and
Mhm.
bringing them together I think is an awesome show of community building, and that the magic community is big enough for everyone. Like everyone is welcome, everyone's involved.
Mhm.
So hearing stories, like when I heard about this, like man, that's super cool. Like I as just like glad to hear that those kind of things are happening, and glad to hear that hopefully more of them. And it's like Why not? Like that's what the community should be doing with each other. People should be supporting each other, should be building each other up. There are plenty of views out there. There's plenty of Twitch subs. There's plenty of like there's plenty of fans out there, right? It's not that it's not a super finite amount of like, oh well, if I don't, I can't tell this person like what my secrets over here, otherwise they're gonna take. Like, there's so many people out there. There's so much, everyone can eat, right? I feel like I really believe
Hmm.
that everyone can eat, and
Hmm.
it's so easy to not support people, and it's so refreshing to see a creator go out of his way to support so many people at a time. So props out to that. First off, um, so I also want to talk about you talk about black show. You talk about being a black nerd.
Hmm.
So talk to me about like what that experience is like for you, and like what do you think I guess maybe the struggles have been is being a blurred.
It's crazy. So I have a whole show that I'm actually writing about that experience right now. So that will probably come to Tabletop Jocks pretty soon because this is just kind of an umbrella for many things
Yeah,
to come. Um, but yeah, it's like you said, like growing up hearing that word nerd, it was always like, okay, it's a bad word. But I feel like in the Black community, that hasn't changed. And even with people like Lakeith Stanfield or Donald Glover, or I could keep going. Uh, LeVar Burton. People like that
mm-hmm.
who have been blurred since we were kids, and we grow up and we're like, man, they still don't get the respect that they deserve.
Yeah,
And I, it's I don't know how to bridge that gap. I mean, I was in the barbershop, getting my, hair twisted yesterday, and I got my nails done, and like the lady was like, "Oh, why you do your nails like that?" And I was like, "Oh, just formal expression." She's like, "Mm," and
yeah,
I'm like, "What? Like,
mm.
I can't just live. Like, I'm paying
Yeah,
you. Like, don't be judging me." Um, but it's true. It's just it's dope when you seek another person of color or another black. It's almost like walking through the cafeteria and being like, "Oh, okay, cool. I guess this is my table." But it's more deep than that. It's like it's almost like it's I don't know how to explain it in words right now, but it's just like a
yeah,
feeling that you get. It's just like, "Oh my God, you get me."
yeah,
Without ever meeting you, without ever saying anything, you get me. And I've had some great experiences with that. And I wish that, like I said, being a nerd is cool right now,
yeah,
except for in certain communities, so I'm trying to figure out how to bridge that gap and make it cool and make it so that other people like unlike like I said, like at the shop we went to in San Diego, where dude
mm.
came up and was like, "Oh, you playing Yu-Gi-Oh?" It's like, no, we playing Magic. Like, you probably got some. And then at the end of that conversation, he was even like, "Hey man, I do got some cards at home." Like, bro, you might be sitting on some bread right now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
he was like, "Oh, okay, that's what's up." And
Yeah,
that like little experiences like that are a win because he kind of came in thinking like, "Oh, I have to tease them or I have to make fun of this because I really like this." But it's almost like being at the schoolyard and the girl, making fun of you or whatever. It's like, or the boy pushing the girl down in the sand. It's like he like you, he just don't know how to
how to
chill out
show it.
and express it in a different way. So it's
Yeah,
like when you see those opportunities, it's like, okay, I have to take this. I have to take whatever strings I'm being handed, and like, hey, no, come on, let's do it. So I think this show that I'm writing is going to at least, hopefully, in my mind, bridge a gap and let people know, yo, it's cool to do this thing. It is very cool to do this thing, and we're having a lot of fun, and you can have a lot of fun too. It's literally just whatever nerdy things. It's like if you sit there and you'll play NBA 2K,
yeah,
but not or Call of Duty, or but not go play Magic. Like you playing yourself. If you would sit there and do fantasy football, but not play D&D, it's the same shit.
but yeah. Fantasy football is D&D is it's yeah it's
Yeah,
D&D, but for football it's right the same thing, man. It's it's definitely
and you
the
could do
same thing,
and you could
hundred
do
percent.
both, and you could do
Yeah,
both, and
yeah,
it's still legit. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's whatever. So
yeah.
yeah.
That's so. I I'm excited. I've heard you. I've heard you talk about writing about this experience, and I'm not going to sit here as the white guy, like, so tell me about the black. That's obviously that's not, all I try to do. All I can do, if I can give a podium or an audience to someone who can kind of talk about their experiences, which is what I'm hoping we've kind of done here. That's what I feel like I can do. Why don't you talk to me? I'm not gonna. But I think what I like to reiterate when I talk to people is. Um, uh, that I lost my train. Representation matters. Like that's I
Mm,
think the biggest thing is
hmm.
when you see people who look like you doing stuff that you may never thought you could do for whatever reason, it changes opinions, right?
Yeah.
So I guess why I've been such a big fan of yours is like I see you going out there and you are 100% you always, right? You get your nails done, you do the superhero nails, you play Magic, you do Dungeons and Dragons, you hang out with an NFL football. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's 100% unadulterated you. Like, and I think that's and then you go out and you host creator barbecues and like you really focus on just being the best community kind of member you can. So I think that's when you talk about like you see someone and you have that moment of like, oh yeah, we're into the same thing, and now people can look to you and like, well, this Joe guy, he plays Magic too, super cool. Like, yeah, I can play Magic too. It's like, and there's it kind of, I think it eliminates that stigma. So
Hmm.
I just I think that's super cool, and I think I look forward to seeing your writing, what you come up with this writing project of yours. I think it's going to be great, and I think that seeing the importance of diversity in formats like on YouTube and in having wizards working on kind of stuff I think is important for the game, and I really think it'll expand the people involved. So I have to ask. So as I was kind of like doing some research and everything, wanted to shout out your mom because it looks like she just put out a book, The Ebony
Yes.
Tongue. It's
Yes.
a book of poetry. As I always joke, I have a TikTok. I'm the worst TikToker because all I do is write haikus about Magic cards. I don't do dances. I don't do all. I take a card and I write a haiku. I like poetry. I think poetry's cool. And then I saw this and I was like, oh, I was reading and there's a few preview poems on through Amazon you can take a look at. Powerful
Hmm.
stuff. Like probably more important and serious than I really want to get to on this show, but um, I highly recommend Faye Turner Johnson as author of the book, The Ebony Tongue. It's on Amazon. Um, just the ideas that it puts forth, the talk about hope for social justice and equality. Highly recommend if you're checking this out and you want to support, some great works, some great poetry. Like please check it. I definitely put a link to that. But yeah, I read the first two poems and obviously what we've seen over the past few years with Black Lives Matter and all that kind of stuff. Like it's powerful to me as just like a cis straight white dude, right? Like I can only
Hmm.
imagine like the importance of that kind of world. So definitely check that out if you want some great reading material. So, and I can imagine like you get a lot of your essence from your probably your. I've heard you talk about your folks, but seeing this from your mother, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like there is a spark. It's really easy to say this with Magic, but that spark is I can definitely see that through line, and that you strike me as someone who does not just let uh, things go unanswered. If that's which standing by and doing nothing does not seem like something that's really in your person, and you can see that in all the stuff you're doing, and I think that's super cool. So
That's why, I mean,
yeah,
that's like my favorite X-Men is Magneto because he don't, that's what it is. A
yeah,
lot of people paint him as a villain, but what he's doing is not villain-esque. He's standing up for mutant kind and for
yep,
what he knows is right. And he's like, look, Professor X, you can try to keep a blind eye to this. You can try to manipulate as many minds. I'm not gonna do that. I'm coming through. So get down and lay down.
yeah. I mean, there's sometimes the best course of action is direct action, and
Hmm.
that was kind of the importance with Magneto versus Professor Xavier was like this dichotomy of like, well, Professor X only wanted to wait and kind of be really reactive and whatever, and then obviously Magneto was always kind of on the forefront. And I think a lot of efforts these days, we need a little more Magnetos in the world
Hmm.
versus Professor. I think just with the way the kind of world it's been, it's been a little scary, and people are kind of fed up. And
Yeah.
I think a few more Magnetos in the world would not be necessarily a bad thing. So Um, I was always a Cyclops guy. I was boring. I was the boring Cyclops.
No, but Cyclops is a gangster in the last
I
like
think I think he's definitely more gangster now than when I was like really next to him. But like, because yeah, he's pretty boss now. But I think when I was watching, I was like, oh yeah, it's laser. That's everyone like Wolverine. I mean, Wolverine's always cool, but like I was like,
yeah.
oh, like Cyclops, and I was like, he's kind of boring. But no, they've kind of made him kind of more not just like the boring leader guy. I think he's definitely kind
Yeah,
of come into his own a
he's
little
a
bit.
badass now. Like I
Yeah,
would definitely recommend reading some at least in the last like 5 years. You know, like he stepped his game up. He's like, look, Gene is gone. That I ain't got nothing left. I ain't got nothing to lose. You know.
yeah, that's true. That's yeah. I've recently dipped my toes back into like really reading comics. So I've been on a really big Superman binge lately. Oddly enough, I have
Okay.
a friend who's like I've always been a big Batman. I've always like the Batman guy, but I have a friend who's
Mhm.
always been a huge Superman fan, which I always thought was kind of weird. But like when you get a good Superman story, it's really not a beat 'em up kind of story. It's like, well, Superman's like nearly a god, so how do you write interesting stories? And when you get a good one, like it's more of like him dealing with being a hero or whatever. I just read the Red Sun where he ends up
Red
in
Son.
Russia instead of that
Yeah,
was yeah
Red
kind of
Son's
old now,
dope.
but yeah, I really like that one. So my friend's like, okay, now read. He's got all he's like he's been waiting for this day. He's like, okay, I have a bunch of books for you to read. So it's
That's
been
dope.
it's been super fun. So
Speaking on
Joe, I
that
don't.
too, like
Oh
to make Superman interesting, I feel like because a lot of things, I mean, obviously the boys, that's like evil Superman, and it's like, oh,
yeah
that's how Superman really is. But
yeah
like, I think to make Superman interesting, like for me, write it like Rick and Morty, because you get like you understand that Rick is like he's the genius. He's like the genius. But then
yeah
you got another Rick that's like the genius as well. So it's like, how do you outsmart yourself when
yeah
you know that you're thinking about outsmarting yourself, and there's also a billion of you outsmarting yourself? So it's like, I don't think they need to write it like that. But if there was like a bunch of Superman and they all came together, it's like, how do we dignify our Superman versus the rest of them? How do we like
yeah.
know that, oh, that's our Superman, like because he thinks differently or he whatever. So I think that would be an interesting story. I don't know if they're ever gonna do it, but like that to me would make like, oh, I would okay, let me read a couple more Superman stories, you know?
Yeah, actually, this is kind of the perfect time for it, right? We're in this really weird like multiverse is like the thing for most storyline stuff. So
Exactly.
yeah, because you can't. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of bag on Superman because like, well, he's Superman, like he can't be
There.
beaten. So you
Right.
think every story is like, oh, there's a bad guy, he fights the bad guy and wins. So
Hmm.
it's like, well, you can't that can't be like the core part of the story. You need to write it in a way where it's like, well, what else is going on in Superman's lives that makes you challenge the Superman idea because yeah, he's Superman, like he's the most powerful one, sure. So you can't just be like, well, he wins with his fists, like that's not interesting. Like
Hmm.
he's got to,
Hmm.
that's got to be the real, I think, the crux of like of a good Superman story. So,
Right.
um, I do like your multiverse idea. That's actually a pretty cool. Actually, surprise. Yeah, that would be a pretty because you could definitely because obviously the boys kind of give almost. Homelander is basically a multiverse version of Superman, right? It's just like,
Hmm.
what if he wasn't raised by nice parents from Kansas, sort of thing? But
Right.
yeah, that actually would be a pretty cool thing. All right, I think we got to call someone at DC, and at this they could use the. I mean, they could use the help at this point. I don't know what's
I mean,
going
their
on over there.
cartoons are they're the jam, but like man,
Yeah.
they gotta do something with those movies.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it's wild. It's wild. They were talk about Nightwing. There was supposed to be a Nightwing movie at one point, but then like it
mhm.
just kind of like I don't know what happened to that. So that's
Yeah,
the
the Catwoman movie got like, it's like, well, no, not the Batgirl
but
movie
yeah,
got tanked. I'm like, man, okay.
they need to see. They need to have you need to be Nightwing. That's what it is. We need a DC Nightwing movie with you as a star. Done.
I
Perfect.
would be open to that.
I could imagine. Yeah, I think that would be great. All right, book it. I'm gonna start tweeting at Warner Brothers every day. I got your Nightwing right here, man. I'll send the photos. It's
Hey,
done. We're
let's
good to go.
go. That's it.
All right, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Few things before we go.
Mhm,
What I like to do is what I've been doing is kind of donating to some charities for my guests, just in an effort to be better in the world because why not?
mhm,
Um, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do two things because I can. It's my show. Definitely gonna do a contribution to Best Friends LA, which is an animal shelter. You said was it where you got your cat?
Yes, yes, that's where we picked up our cat. We fostered her. We're fail fosters, so yeah, she's still around. Uh,
There you go.
3 years later.
Yeah, well, that's it's hard. I can only I have two dogs, so I can only imagine you getting once they're there, man. They're it's probably tough. So we'll
Right.
be making a donation to them. Also, I'm going to continue on with my tradition of making a donation to the National Abortion Federation, just to kind of help people get the medical care that they need and deserve. It's
For real.
if we can try to help people in a situation where they need medical attention they deserve, probably it's the least I can sort of do. So we will be making those as a from Joe and the Show and Tell show. And lastly, what I do is I have my community board, which I'll use the magic of photo editing to pop up right here, and then I will. So Show and Tell, I'm gonna subscribe to your Tabletop Jocks Patreon, so that way the show can continue to support you even after the interview is over. Because we talk about. I've actually heard you talk about this too. Is like the best way to kind of support a show is like give them money, right? So subscribe, join a Patreon, because that's really what goes into the show. Probably giving you access to more funds for better lighting, better equipment.
Hmm.
So it's the smallest thing we can kind of sort of do. So that way I can kind of continue to support you and all that you're doing out there in the Magic world, and Magic and beyond, D&D or whatever, what have you. So I will pop on that subscription. So again, small way I can kind of keep supporting you, because I think you are doing a lot of good work out there. So we'll get that going. Just wanted to point out a few I keep saying trade shows because of my job, conventions. I think are you going to be at Magic 30 this year? And
I will be at.
you'll be there. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
be Magic 30.
sweet. I'll be there as well. So maybe I'll get to say hi in
Awesome.
person. I'll be
Yeah,
kind
we'll
of sweet.
get to hang out. Let's do it.
Yeah, get a game in. I've loved
Hell
so
yeah.
many people get some games, and I'm very excited.
Let's go.
I think I also got you at the Magic Summit in November as well. I think you're a
Yep.
guest creator, so definitely check out Joe if you're going to be in town. Like I said, I'm definitely going to come find you at Magic 30. I'm like, something I'll probably fanboy a little bit because that's what I do. And yeah, check out Tabletop Jocks. I'll go ahead and link all your stuff in the bio and all that kind of good stuff. And then if you're watching this show and you liked it, hit the subscribe button. I don't know, that's kind of a fun thing.
Hey.
I just started doing that in the last 2 episodes, telling people to subscribe because that's what a good creator does, I guess. I don't know. This is a fun thing for me. So if people are enjoying it, makes me feel good about. I just broke 20 subscribers. Felt very happy about that.
Hey.
Hey,
You gotta start somewhere.
Exactly. So, Joe, thank you so much for your time. Had a great time talking with you, and looking forward to hopefully meeting you at Magic 30 and checking out what you got coming up on YouTube. So we'll catch you soon, and thanks for stopping by.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.